Thank you, everyone who's joined so far. We're just going to wait a few more minutes for a few more people to join.
Wow, there's 30 people on?
Yeah.
maybe they all heard that too.
Yeah, everyone can. Yep.
It's live, everyone.
But yeah, thank you, everyone. 30 people for joining us. This is great. Okay, well, I think we'll get started because I have a feeling that's about the number we'll stay at during the whole webinar. So again, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Kylie Morgan and I'm with Plug-in America. Today, our two presenters will be Kathleen Stankin from also Plug-in America. She's our policy director. And then I am the program coordinator at Plug-in America. I manage National Drive Electric Week, Drive Electric Earth Day, as well as our Southern California EV test drive events. Also, we're going to have a couple of guest speakers today, Sean Leach and Don Freister. Sean is an NDEW city captain, so he'll have lots of advice there. He also does a lot of green initiative work in his community. And then Don is a councilman, and he can give some firsthand knowledge about how to get in touch with elected officials and really engage them at your events. And just a reminder to everyone, we really encourage you to tag us on Facebook and Twitter, as well as Instagram, when you're promoting your events. Also, if be sure to use the hashtag NDEW 2019 or Drive Electric. All right, next I'm going to pass it over to Catherine.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kylie. You can hear me okay? Kylie?
Yeah, yes, sorry, I muted myself. You're good.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining this webinar. And I just wanted to also point out too that National Drive Electric Week, it's co-organized by the Sierra Club and the Electric Auto Association. And so last year, Mary Lunetta from the Sierra Club and myself, we just gave a brief presentation about, making National Drive Electric Week last and inviting your public officials. And that's really what this is all about. We want to celebrate driving electric, not just in 1 week, but throughout the entire year, and share our enthusiasm and passion for driving electric, every single day. And those that don't drive electric yet, we want to convince them that they should. So that's really what this webinar is about how you can engage in your local elected officials, whether they're just city council members or whether they're your congressional representatives, and how to involve them into the your Drive Electric Week event, and make it last beyond just 1 week. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so why engaging with your local elected officials? Well, first of all, it's kind of straightforward there on the slide, but this gives your officials and the agencies a chance to share any successes that they've recently had or future plans that they might have. So, for example, maybe something about the Volkswagen settlement funding. If there's been charging stations that have been installed in your local community someplace, that's a success. So we want to celebrate that and encourage them to install more charging stations in certain places, or let them know that, hey, a station's always broken, or the location of the station isn't working, we should move it to a different place. So that's one reason why it's good to engage with your electeds. But then also with these future plans, so much of the future of transportation is changing, and so it's good to educate your local elected officials on what the future of transportation holds. There's a lot of issues that they need to pay attention to, and so transportation might be for sure one of them, but they might not be as knowledgeable about the issue as you are. So if they're planning some kind of a regional transportation strategy, you want to be sure that everything that you know is a part of the mix, and that you're sharing that with your local electeds. Secondly, involvement with them also builds media and other public interest. So definitely when you invite a congressional representative or the council members, the local newspaper wants to get involved, other media outlets, radio, TV, it'll just bring more awareness to your event and you'll get more attendance, and that's really what this is all about. Finally, then it's a great opportunity to bring about some policy changes and to build relationships. And it kind of goes along the same lines of the first point there about changes to the transportation policy, or letting people know about the stations where they're working, where they're not. If there needs to be a policy in place about maybe order of priority in your community about where you want the stations to go in first, if funding becomes available within your city for additional charging stations, that kind of thing. And that all starts with building these relationships at these events like National Drive Electric Week. Let's go to the next slide.
Thanks, Catherine. Also, I wanted to add before we move on to the next slide, if anyone has questions while we're going through the webinar, there's a question tab in the control panel where you can submit your questions, and then we'll read those at the end and answer them. All right, I'll move to the next slide now.
Okay, so engaging how and when. So we get a lot of questions actually about how to go about engaging with your local elected officials. And really, I think the most important thing to keep in mind, and maybe Don, you'll mention this when it's your turn to speak, is that they were elected by you and they're supposed to represent you and they work for you, so to speak. So they want to hear from you. They want to be sure that they're doing their job properly, or they should want to be doing their job properly. So now is kind of the best time to get involved and to reach out to your local elected officials. So you just go onto your local council member's website, get their emails, get their phone numbers, just contact them, be very friendly. Most often you'll probably be working with a scheduler or an assistant. You might want to send along, write up an official letter or something inviting your official to come to the event, explaining what the event is all about, maybe offer them a speaking opportunity. So we have a bunch of talking points that are available on the Drive Electric Week website. It's under resources. And there you can also find some templates for requesting official proclamations, how to involve your local agencies, whether it's a transportation agency or maybe a state energy office has a building in your city or your town or something, and then how to request policy announcements as well. Let's go to the next slide. So one thing, a resource that we have on our website is, as I mentioned, these National Drive Electric Week proclamations and the template for that. So we saw a lot of this in 2018, which is fantastic. Just cities and towns, and sometimes, I don't know if we had any state recognized National Drive Electric Week yet, but we're working actually on the federal level to have National Drive Electric Week be recognized across the whole country. So this was getting these proclamations. It's just kind of a way for your city to recognize the importance of driving electric and EVs and everything that goes along with this. So the city of Evanston, Illinois, this is just an example there, this picture there of the proclamation that they had produced for National Drive Electric Week. And we always encourage you to get pictures of your local elected officials posing with the proclamations too, because that it's really great for posting on social media. Let's go to the next slide. So if you want to go above and beyond, though, and do more than just a resolution or a proclamation or something, we do have on our website a model policy toolkit. There's a link there at the top. This is something we've worked on with the Sierra Club over the years, and this year we'll be doing a 3.0 version as well. Last year, we tried to focus more on the regional level for certain policies and templates that are available. And you can see there some of the things that are listed, various templates and whatnot, some on expanding the visibility and awareness of EVs. So whether that's through fleet adoption of EVs and educating on the EV license fees or the user fees, there's resources on that. It might be on something on offering incentives, and there's information there, lowering the vehicle cost, and then expanding charging infrastructure. So some of these policies might be more applicable at the state level, in which case then I'd encourage you, if you see a need for a policy in your state, to reach out then to myself or to our colleagues at the Sierra Club, and we'd be happy to work with you to try to bring about a larger statewide policy, something maybe for lowering the vehicle cost for the near term, like a rebate or a tax credit or tax exemption or something like that. If you're interested to know what policies are available in your state at the moment, on our website we have a map that lists out all the incentives, and then also on the Department of Energy's website for alternative fuels, there's also a great listing of all the most current up-to-date incentives in your state. Let's go to the next slide. So these are some of the additional policy announcements that were associated with National Drive Electric Week events in 2018. And I'll just read through them very slowly. So the first one there, the Danville Utilities in Virginia, they unveiled the public EV charging stations in the parking lot of the community market, and let folks know that they were available for use at no additional cost. And the Duchesne Light Company announced a program with the Pittsburgh Parking Authority garages to nearly double the number of electric vehicle charging stations. And then finally, the mayor of Abita Springs, Greg Lemons, he cut the ribbon on the town's first ever EV charging stations, which are located in the historic center of the town. So these are the kind of things, great announcements to be making. There's a lot of announcements out there that we saw last year too on electric buses, shuttle buses, or school buses, things like that. I think that you could probably find a lot of announcements to be making and sharing about the Volkswagen settlement funding being spent in your community, and whether that is a station along a highway corridor or whether that's electric buses. You'd probably be surprised about the extent of that funding and where it's ending up in your community and in your states. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, great. Kylie, do you want to introduce Sean?
Yeah. So as I said, Sean Leach is a city captain in Beverly, Massachusetts. He's also a member of Beverly's Clean Energy Advisory Committee, and he's the co-founder of greenbeverly.com. Sean, go ahead and take it away, and feel free to introduce yourself further if you have a few more details you'd like to add.
Sure. I hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to first say thank you to Kylie and Catherine and all the Drive Electric folks out there for putting on this event and being sort of this great ongoing resource for this electric vehicle movement. These events have been really fun, and there's been a lot of interest locally in them, and I think it's only going to expand as the years go on. And I'm just glad to be a part of it and to keep having these events in my city. I just wanted to, you can jump to the next slide. Thank you. So I think a lot of this is probably going to echo what Catherine has already said, but when you are the captain of one of these events or part of one of these events, the most important thing to start with is passion. If you're going to people in your city or city groups or people at the state level, you really have to be passionate about what you're talking about, or else it's just not going to land. You really have to get across how excited you are about electric vehicles, about this event in general, and making sure that EVs become part of the larger conversation in your city or town. When you're first sort of reaching out to City Hall or Town Hall, whatever you have, you should probably start with a sustainability group or a particular champion that's in your city. Those people will typically have a better sense of who is an advocate, who could be an ally in getting this set up, and who are the right people to talk to in the city, outside of obviously the mayor and people around them, or however your city is arranged. But they're usually a really good place to start are the people who are already in this world, be it EVs, sustainability, even waste reduction committees. Those can be a great place to start because we all sort of live in the same space. If there are no specific champions or groups in your city, it's a great idea to reach out to your ward reps if you have those, your city council, or even more general local advocacy groups, including national groups as well. They often will have connections to people in your city or town that could help you sort of move this along quicker. And if the worst case scenario, you really can't find anybody locally, which I'd be surprised by, but stranger things have happened, you just sort of have to be the champion yourself. You're gonna have to show up to City Hall, talk to people, get people excited, print out posters. I find going on your local Facebook groups can be really helpful. It's a great way to get directly to people in your town. Just get the word out, start building interest in finding those allies to start building this event and getting support for it. And a really big thing is visit City Hall or Town Hall in person. Go meet these people, schedule an actual time to sit down with them. Email is way too easy to ignore, and even phone calls can be tough to get returned. So it's a good idea to at least establish the relationship in person first. Get there, meet them, get them excited, and give them as much information as you can. Next slide, please. So why should your city or town support this event? Again, some of this has been echoed earlier by Catherine, but this is a great marketing opportunity for your city or town to show how green they are, or forward thinking or progressive. EVs are really a major part of the discussion right now, and a lot more people are aware of them than ever before. So it shows that the city is really a part of that up-to-date conversation. EV adoption, as we all know, is really ramping up incredibly quickly, and because it's a city or town, they're going to need to be a part of it, because at the end of the day, it's all going to go back into the local infrastructure. Obviously, city planning is a big part of this, where to put the chargers. Public charging equity is a big thing. Not everybody has a home with a driveway. How are you going to have charging infrastructure available for people who are either low income, they live in multi-unit buildings, apartments, whatever? The city is going to have to be a part of that conversation. So make sure that they understand that. And a great way to illustrate that for them is to actually use this tool that is linked here, the EVI Pro Lite that was put together by NREL, and I think a few other groups. You can basically plug in your city's information and what mix of electric vehicles and plug-in vehicles you think you're going to have, and it will tell you how many level 1 chargers, level 2, and DC fast chargers you'll need, the mix of them, all this great information you can bring to the city to say, hey, listen, if things go the way they're going now, we're really going to need this many in the next 2 years. That's usually a good way to get them get them really concrete information that they can latch onto. Another big thing, and I think a lot of cities have already realized this, is there's a huge benefit to cities if they adopt EVs for their fleet vehicles. No more maintenance costs for the most part. It's a huge savings for a city to start electrifying their fleet. And the last thing is being able for the city or town to give their citizens the opportunity to actually learn about EVs in their city from the best possible source, which is us. National Drive Electric Week, city captains, the people at the events, we're all sort of fanatical about this. And I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of you are the same way. We love talking about it. I will sit in a parking lot for an hour and talk to someone about an EV. And I know from past National Drive Electric events that we've had, I know there's at least 3 or 4 people locally who bought an EV shortly after that event. And to me, that's huge. So try and get the city officials excited about the prospect of that and being a part of that. Next slide, please. So what can the official talk about at the event if they're excited and they want to be a part of it? Obviously, their efforts to date in the EV and sustainability space. Again, some cities are further ahead than others, so they may have more or less to talk about. But if they have any EV charging going in, even solar arrays going up that could potentially feed EV chargers down the line, anything the city wants to talk about that sort of, forgive the pun, plugs into this whole effort. What the city's plans are for fleet electrification, charging infrastructure, and just supporting EV adoption in general. I know our city has plans to do a big public charging push soon, and this event is a great opportunity for them to get in front of people and talk about it. Other sustainable transportation efforts. I know at our Drive Electric Earth Day event, we also had our bike committee there, and they did a bike repair clinic and a bike rodeo for kids, and it was a great way to sort of get the kids there and other bike enthusiasts all talking together with the EV enthusiasts, because we're all in this to make transportation cleaner. So it was a nice way of sort of joining local groups. And often cities are pushing for bike lanes, local shuttles, things like that they can talk about at this event. And I know mentioned earlier was the VW settlement money. This is absolutely huge. And if you guys haven't had your city look at this money yet, they need to. I know in Massachusetts, it's had pretty good interest, and there is a tremendous amount of money for most states to build infrastructure at very low to even no cost in some cases. So definitely encourage your city to look at what's available to them and potentially talk about it at the event if they want to. Another thing they could do is have the local power company talk about smart charging or any other EV related events or programs they're going to have. I know locally National Grid is going to be kicking off some sort of smart charging soon, and they've actually sponsored our event in the past. And again, pick up the phone and call them. You'd be surprised at how willing a lot of these power companies are to sponsor these events, because again, EVs just mean more customers for them and more electrons flowing. And lastly, they can talk about how excited they are to be learning about EVs from local experts and actually being able to go on test drives, because test driving cars is fun. And it's even more fun when it's a wide variety of these really new, exciting cars, both from dealers and local owners. So I think that's about it. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much. And next we're going to move to Don, and then Catherine is actually going to read a little bit more introduction about him.
Right, so Don, he's served for 16 years as a Nebraska state senator, and he's currently served for 11 years on the Bellevue City Council, where he's organized Green Bellevue, which helps to educate and promote healthy living practices. And that website is greenbellevue.org. So Don, you're up.
Thank you, Catherine and Kylie and Sean. Hello, friends. It's nice to be here. And yes, having a green team like Green Bellevue or any of the other green organizations is a good support base. Today, talking about elected officials, I never expected to be one, but here I am. Effective communication with elected officials really asks you to treat them like a friend. Don't be afraid. Don't be concerned about how you do it. Be real, be yourself. Respect their time by being organized and brief when you do contact them. Prepare well in advance, knowing the facts and details that you want to present to them. Ask them questions to learn their concerns and thoughts, then listen carefully, even taking notes to follow up with them. Send them relevant newsletters and fact sheets. Make them look good any way that you can. Include their names in your media releases with their permission, of course. You can even provide an appropriate quote for them that they can approve in advance. Provide them opportunities to speak at events, and when they attend your Drive Electric a Week and other events, always recognize and introduce them to the group. Letters, emails, and phone calls are all okay. Sean said the E for emails was easily deleted and forgotten. Emails may not be the best, but I wouldn't give up on anything. but he's right. A face-to-face contact is definitely the best. Again, stay brief, make it right to the point, and be open and ready to listen after that. Important to visit with their staff, especially at the federal level. They do have staff. City councils and some of us at the local level don't have them. But if you win the staff over, you're also getting to the representative, but in an indirect way. So don't leave out the staff. The more you do to make it easy for elected officials to do what you want, the better. Give them sample remarks for speaking. Ask that it be provided at any public forums. Provide them a sample proclamation that is available. They can then adapt it and make it local. When you do that, ask that the proclamation be read and presented to you at their public meetings. That gets you more promotion for your event, especially when many of these meetings are locally filmed or YouTubed or shown to the public at a later time. Include them in your opening ceremony at the Drive Electric Week and at any other times then or leading up to it. Request of your elected officials to be put on their mail list so that you can be informed of issues and the things that they're doing and future opportunities where you might engage or assist them. Take pictures with them at your event and then share them later in follow-up when you thank them. And that's an important component. After you get help and after your event, do a later phone call to ask how it went for them and how it could have been better. Always gratitude should be expressed. Get their feedback so that you can improve. Make notes and share those all relevant information with the others in your group and anyone else who may help to lead in the future years. I view this year's event as simply a step or a part of an ongoing education process. And we all need to help build it in our local communities. So this is that opportunity to keep some good notes and to share it later. Offer to help the elected officials as a resource and even offer to volunteer on their election campaigns. It's very important to support officials who share an interest in electric vehicles and other transportation and environment enhancements. Getting them elected makes it a whole lot easier to get their later support. And if you don't have supportive office holders or good candidates, as Sean said too, think about running yourself. Our system of governance doesn't work if good people don't offer their service. I never considered running or even gave it thought until others suggested that I run. I now ask you to think about it. You too could run for elective office. Also, it's valuable to connect with other like-minded groups to leverage resources of volunteers, equipment, experience, contacts, and obviously funds. Doing so maximizes your outreach for event attendance too. Days in advance of your event, make arrangements to have an elected officials test drive. You could do a media release to all local media outlets for coverage that will help promote attendance for your later event. We did one here and I was really surprised at how much media attention we got with that and all of the TV coverage. It was incredible the amount of people who attended just as a result of that. Check with your area electricity provider for any available support, including grant funds for EVs, charging stations, or other resources. Your city or state may also have opportunities available, including, as we talked about, the money from the VW settlement that's available to every state. Depending on where your state is with allocating those funds, we got active in terms of how those funds were even allocated. Sierra Club and Green Bellevue and other groups were right there engaged in saying we need the full 15% that's allowed for us to use for electric vehicle charging stations around the state. So rather than all that money going into natural gas vehicles or things that may not reduce our carbon footprint, we wanted the maximum for charging stations and infrastructure. You can check with your local state energy office to find out more information about the funds and where your individual state is with the distribution and allocation of those funds. But getting active with the allocation as well as being engaged in that process is time well spent. I also suggest you visit with people in your area who've been effective and know your particular area representatives at local, city, state, and county, as well as at the federal levels. Those people who have been effective or who already have the contacts can be very useful to you. So get their help and utilize all of their resources as you go about doing this Drive Electric program. I think Catherine said it very well when she said it's good to celebrate success. Any success that your elected official has had or that you have had with them, celebrate that, promote it, publicize it. Elected officials are regular people. They like thank yous. They like the good publicity because frequently they get the other kind. So any time you can, as I said in the beginning, be seen as their friend, be seen as somebody who makes life easier for them, the more likely they're going to be available and listen and support you when they need it. And with that, I think I'll conclude, and I sure look forward to some questions.
All right, thank you so much, John. That was definitely some great advice and some great ideas. Yeah, I hadn't considered before using a test drive before the event to publicize the event. So that's great. All right. So just a final reminder, some tips is be sure to take and share great photos, whether or not you have a public official at your event. Photos are powerful. Photos are how we, promote National Drive Electric Week, how we promote EVs and really show the great work we're doing. You can also offer any public officials or VIPs in attendance guided tours of the vehicles on display. Finally, don't forget to do a post-event press release. No matter if public officials came to your event or not, doing a press release after the event gives you more likelihood that your event will be covered in a local media outlet. And finally, be sure to thank and follow up with anyone in attendance. It's always just a nice thing to do, and hopefully will help them come back next year. All right, so now we have Q&A. Also, my email is there, so feel free to email me with questions at a later time. But now we're going to go through the questions that people submitted. Okay. All right, so first question is there any third-party is there any third-party ride and drive event coordinating firms? So there are various companies and small businesses who organize ride and drive events and who you can pay to do that. Not to promote anyone specifically, but a few out there are Reach and Charge Across Town, I'm sure you can Google and find other people as well. I know that auto dealers often use companies to activate their events, although the companies they use may be pretty expensive. All right, the next question. Catherine, can you see the next question? If there is one, I'm having a bit of trouble going through them.
Any thoughts regarding liability coverage for ride and drive events? So that's you, Kylie, or Sean, or Don, if you've got input on the liability coverage there.
I actually have a little bit of quick input on it. We've actually run into this at all the events. And thankfully, we have our local clean energy committee, which I am on, host the event. And in our city, that technically puts us under the city's insurance rider. So that can be a good way to approach it if you don't have a lot of funds available. If your city's committees are technically insured if they do events, that's a great way to have it covered and move on with it.
I could just add, I think that's wise. When we have the event on a public property, then it's usually covered under the general rider for the city as a public event. And if it's held on at a private place like a university where we've done it, then it's often covered under the university's general policy too. But it is good to check with whoever and however the location is arranged for.
Okay. Is there draft wording for proclamations for cities to reproduce? Yes. The draft wording for proclamations for cities, that's on the website right now for National Drive Electric Week. It might still say 2018 in the header, but we could just change that to be 2019. The same wording would apply because you want to tout the benefits of driving electric, and those haven't changed. Next question, are the National Drive Electric Week resources updated for this year? For example, the Drive Electric logo for promotional use. Kylie.
Yes, so the resources are updated. As Catherine said, the proclamation draft may have the 2018 date, but other than that, the template should be updated and the logo is good to go.
Okay. How do we find out about the Volkswagen settlement funding spent in our community? Well, one good resource is actually the Sierra Club. They have a great blog that's continually updating about the resources for the VW settlement money. And then also they've got a map and they've got links to all the various plans and draft plans and all of that on their website. So I would recommend starting there. Don and Sean, you want to add more?
As I said in my talk, check with your state energy office. I'm not sure what they call it here in Nebraska. At one time, it was a separate energy department. Now it's the energy and environment. But check your state website for the energy office in your state, and they should be the ones managing it. You could also contact your local state elected official, state senator, representative, and they should be able to get you the direct links to where that information is.
Okay. Question, I think this is for Sean. What is a bike rodeo for kids? I'm also curious myself.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's basically just a cone course they set up, and the kids can either race against each other or the clock. It's just a fun little thing.
Usually there's some safety and they're taught good lessons in responsible riding too. So we do them well, and they're fun for the kids. You can even recruit bicycle shops or groups to provide some free bicycles to raffle off to encourage attendance or giveaway.
Yeah, and that just reminds me of another tip is that in general, it's really good to incorporate other activities into your events other than an electric vehicle display or test rides. It's much easier to market an event that has like food trucks and stage and music and some other interactive elements than one with only one activity.
Yes, panel discussions and education opportunities, tabling of the various groups that are helping with it, or the networking with other environmental groups at the event are very good to do. We've had good success with that.
Yeah, we've done similar things as well. I think we've had 350.org come and give some environmental talks, and we also do tours of the active solar field we have at the high school. It's one of the oldest running solar fields in the country, so we'll do tours throughout that during the day as well, just to sort of keep people hanging around. We also had a local surf shop actually bring some one-wheel electric skateboards, and they gave demos of that. So that's a great way to attract a sort of varied demographic of people. People had a lot of fun with that, and it gives the kids who can't drive something to try as well. One other thing related to an earlier question about places you can ask about the VW money, the Clean Energy States Alliance is really great, and that's CESA, CESA.org. They put on a lot of great webinars and informational things about clean energy, and they tend to have great contacts in each state that they can help you reach out to.
Yep. Okay, so do we have some national leaders who are identified with National Drive Electric Week? If so, who are they? I can answer this, and Kylie, you can add in, but national leaders, so in terms of like senators or representatives or celebrities, we don't officially, because you are all the national leaders identified with National Drive Electric Week. We do have a VIP reception that Plug in America hosts, but that's more just to recognize some, I think, just like nationwide leaders in the EV industry and space. But we don't, I don't know if we necessarily would want to have that either, and brand it in that way, because really the cars and you all are the celebrities and the focus of the events. But Kylie, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think that was a great point. You know, we really could not do this without our volunteers. So we really want to keep it as neutral as possible and keep the focus just on educating about electric vehicles.
Another question. Okay, are 2 months sufficient time to get all this done? How quickly can local governments respond? So, Don, you want to take it first, and then Sean add to it?
I think 2 months is sufficient. Obviously, you like more time, so you get more outreach, and you always want to give as much time as you can. Most city councils meet either every other week or weekly, depending on the size of the community. So if you've got a sample proclamation and you send it in to your mayor or representative and ask them to put it on the agenda, usually they can respond within 2 to 3 weeks without too much problem. And when you do that, you do want to ask for it to be presented in public at the public meeting. As I said, it just gets you more promotion. More people see it, particularly if it's filmed and shown later. So 2 months, yes, I think there's enough time.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Don for the most part. I mean, I like to bring things up to the city as early as possible, just to sort of get it on their long range calendar. And also, you know, certain officials' calendars book up pretty far in advance depending on how busy they are. So give them as much notice as you can, but also talk to them directly and say, hey, when do you want me to put this back in front of you? You know, get a sense of what they need to keep this going, because it's going to be different for everybody. I know this talk isn't about working with the dealerships, but I would give them as much time as possible, but you basically have to ride them throughout the whole process. You know, I started the first event I started 8 months in advance, maybe even longer, and, you know, had everybody signed up and ready to go. And then as it got closer to the event, I'd say almost half of them just completely canceled. So it's a good idea to make sure you check in with everybody fairly regularly. Don't be annoying, but, you know, make sure everything's moving along.
Okay, great. We got,
Yeah.
There's one more question there, but we can answer that offline. Mark, we'll take your question offline because that's specific to an event.
Okay, and then also I just wanted to add about the dealer outreach. We will be doing a webinar on tips for doing a test drive. I'm hoping we'll be doing that at the end of this month, if not early August at the latest. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to start reaching out to dealers now, but we'll be providing more tips soon.
Well, to that point, Kylie, do you have any help on what to charge dealers or partners to pay for participation in the event? Or should that be answered at the dealer webinar?
No, it's fine. I can answer it now. And give me one moment. Let me go to a quieter area. Okay. Yeah, so most dealers, at least in our experience organizing test drive events, don't charge to participate. But the flip side of that is that it can be very difficult to get them to your event, because what you're doing is you're asking them to leave the sales floor and engage with customers offsite. So, some tips might be to incentivize them, tell them about the people who are coming to your event, that they're potential customers. And also, weekdays are much better than weekends. And finally, dealers are usually unavailable at the end of the month because they're trying to meet their sales quotas. Yeah. And then any other incentive that you can offer them to be there, of course, will help, but there's generally not a fee for them to come, because it's free marketing for them, really, to show off their vehicle and hopefully sell it to a potential customer.
I also wanted to add one thing to that as far as figuring out which dealers to reach out to. I would start at the state level to see if there are any state-driven EV buying programs and figure out which dealers are taking part in that, and then reach out to them first. They tend to be the dealers that actually understand electric vehicles, care about them, and want to sell them. So they will likely be the ones who are going to say yes. And then if for whatever reason they're all booked out for that day or whatever, you can go on to other dealers that may want to partake. But I found a huge difference between, pick 3 Nissan dealers or Chevy dealers. They can be very different in how they react to the event. So I would start with the ones that are sort of already on board if you can.
And I would add to that even within one dealership, different people have varying amounts of understanding and insight. So networking with the folks who have electric vehicles and who have purchased cars and who can give you information about who the people are that sell the cars that really have the insight or the experience, or who happen to be driving an EV themselves. Because some of the salespeople will sell the car and have no clue anything about it at all. So there's a great variance, and particularly here in Nebraska, not much experience. So identifying where people have purchased cars and where they have good experience is helpful too.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Don just said. That's a really good point. The specific salespeople, there's a huge difference. Even in a state like Massachusetts, which is pretty supportive of EVs, there's still a really shocking lack of knowledge across dealer networks about these vehicles. So as Don said, find the people that own them and which salespeople they had a good experience with, and you can work through there as well. It's a great point, Don.
Okay, that might be all the questions that we have at the moment, but if anyone has a follow-up question, you can email Kylie there at her email address. So let's go to the next slide.
All right. Yeah, and this is just a final reminder to please tag us on social media and use the hashtags. I apologize, the hashtag should be NDEW 2019, not 2018. But again, promoting your event on social media is a great way to get a good, diverse audience to your event. So it's not just EV owners showing up to your events, it's also young people who are looking to buy their first car, or people who know nothing about EVs. So be sure to be on social media, and I think that is it for us. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Catherine and Don and Sean, for all of your great insights. I hope this was useful to everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Don.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you very
Kylie,
much.
Sean.
Yeah,
Thanks so
bye.
much.
Thanks to all the people that tuned in.
Yeah, thank you, and bye.